So, what does it really mean to be ethical when you're in ministry? It's a huge question, right? Well, in this explainer, we're going to dive deep into the framework from the book, Biblical Counseling Ethics. We'll see exactly how it builds a system for integrity, right from the very foundation.
Okay, so here's how we're going to tackle this. We're going to build this thing piece by piece, kind of like a construction project. First up, we'll look at the core problem, just navigating ethics in general. Then we'll pour the foundation, which is all about God's character. After that, we'll bring in the blueprint. That's scripture. Then come the guardrails, which is where the law fits in. And finally, we'll step back and see the whole structure put together.
So let's get right into it. To really get why this ethical system exists, we first have to understand the problem it's trying to solve. I mean, why do you even need a specific framework for ministry ethics in the first place?
Just think about it. We're living in a world where everything feels like it's constantly changing, right? So what do you hold on to? If you just rely on, cultural trends or your own gut feeling, it's like trying to find your way through a storm without a compass. It's just not going to work. The whole argument here is that ministry leaders need something solid, an unchanging guide to handle all the super complex stuff they face, like every single day.
And this question, man, this gets right to the heart of the matter. When you're in one of those tough spots, you know the kind, a real gray area where there's no easy right answer, what's your standard? What's your North Star? What do you actually anchor yourself to when things get messy?
Well, the answer this framework gives is probably not what you'd expect. It doesn't start with a big book of rules. Nope, it starts with something way more fundamental, the actual character of God. This is the absolute bedrock. Everything else is built on top of this. So what this means is that in this system, ethics and theology aren't two different things. Ethics is a direct outflow of who God is. And that's absolutely crucial because it gives you a foundation that isn't like shifting sand. It totally reframes the question. You stop asking, okay, what should I do? And you start asking, what does my decision here say about who God is? See the difference? It's a huge shift. And it gets even more practical. 4 key attributes of God's character become your main filter for any decision. You literally run every choice through these 4 questions. Is it holy? Is it loving? Is it just? And is it truthful? These aren't just, big, fuzzy, abstract ideas. They become a real-world practical gut check for every single thing you do. Now, this has a massive implication. Think it through. If ethics flows from God's character and humans are made in God's image, the imago Dei, well, what does that mean? It means every single person has this built-in, intrinsic dignity that demands our deepest respect. It's not a value we decide to give them, it's a value they already have. That one idea alone can radically change every conversation, every decision, every interaction. Okay, so we've got our foundation poured. Let's move to the next layer and see how this thing is built. With God's character as the bedrock, Scripture comes in as the primary blueprint. It's the plan for how you actually live out that character. The key word for this layer is sufficiency. The central claim here is that the Bible gives you all the guidance you actually need for ethical living. So it's not just another book on the shelf you might consult. It's positioned as the ultimate final authority. The buck stops there. And what this does is it creates a super clear hierarchy of authority. It's not saying things like human reason or cultural norms or professional theories are worthless. Not at all. They can be really helpful guides. But they're always subordinate. They have to be measured against Scripture, which always gets the final say. No exceptions. All right, foundations in, blueprints laid out. Now we need to add the practical guardrails, the stuff that helps us navigate the real world we all live in. So you might be wondering, okay, where does the law of the land fit into all this? Well, in this framework, civil law isn't seen as some competing authority to the Bible. It's actually viewed as a structure God himself instituted to keep society orderly and to protect people. So being a good law-abiding citizen isn't just a civic thing, it's actually framed as part of your spiritual duty. And this has some really practical, real-world consequences. It means if you're in ministry, you have to be aware of specific legal duties. We're talking things like mandatory reporting, confidentiality limits. These aren't just bureaucratic hoops to jump through. They're legal structures specifically designed to protect vulnerable people and make sure there's a standard of care. That's why the guardrail analogy is so good. They're there to keep everyone safe. But, this creates a major point of tension, a real dilemma. People in ministry are entrusted with sacred confidences, right? So what happens when that sacred trust slams head-on into a legal duty? Like, say, mandatory reporting of suspected child abuse. Which one wins? What do you do?
Well, the answer from this framework is pretty clear. It argues that the biblical mandate to protect the vulnerable, the defenseless, actually aligns perfectly with what the law is trying to do. So the duty to protect a child from harm isn't just a legal hoop to jump through. It becomes a moral imperative that actually overrides the general rule of confidentiality. In short, a report has to be made, period. Okay, so we've looked at all the different pieces. Let's step back and put it all together now. What does this complete ethical structure actually look like when it's all assembled? And you can really picture it as a pyramid. At the very bottom, the huge, unshakable foundation is the character of God. Built right on top of that is the blueprint, the supreme authority of Scripture. And then, acting as those practical guardrails around the whole thing, you have civil law and professional standards. You see how each piece supports the others? It creates this one, single, coherent ethical framework. So what's the big takeaway from all this? The whole point of this framework is to push ethics beyond being just a simple checklist of do's and don'ts. The goal isn't just about avoiding bad stuff. It's about actively, intentionally reflecting the character of God, that holiness, love, justice, and truth in every single decision you make. And that really leaves us with a final thought to chew on. What does it really mean to be an ethical person? Is it about following a list of rules to the letter? Or is it something deeper, about cultivating and reflecting a certain kind of character? And maybe the biggest question of all is, does your answer to that question depend entirely on the foundation you've chosen to build your life on?